Hello. Today, I just want to give you a quick overview of the final project that I made for my C# class this semester. The project is a personally controlled health record. This uses Microsoft Visual C#. This is a Windows application that uses local DB. So we were provided with an MDF file that we had to use in the project. So I used the context DB, excuse me, the scaffold DB context command to basically get the structure of that database and let Visual Studio turn that into classes for me. So I put them in this data layer in this models folder. So I've got essentially the model of the database. All of the tables and columns are stored in these various classes here. I did have to do some manipulation on the database itself using Management Studio, Microsoft SQL Server. So I'll cover a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. But really, before I talk about much more, I really just want to dive right into the application, show you what it can do. So I'm going to go ahead and just launch the application. So this is a health record. So this would be similar to what you would find if you went to a health clinic. You know, you go in, you've got all those forms that you have to sit down and fill out, especially if you're a first-time visitor to that clinic. You have to fill out all your personal details, your insurance information, lots of different stuff. So it can get kind of tiresome. So having this in an electronic format, it's nice in that you get to only update as needed. So this application does implement some CRUD operations. So I've got a user that I've already set up in my database. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in as that user. And I do have the password field hidden with the special password character set here. So for increased web or user security here. So go ahead and log in. Get a message saying that we've got a successful login here. So I'll log in. And when we log into the main application, we've got this main form, which is personal details. We've got 4 different tabs at the top here. This personal details has mainly one of the classes, the patient class that the DB provided. That's mainly what we're seeing here, and you can see that I have previously worked as this user, and so I've got a lot of saved information in these fields here. So it's pulling all this information from the database. We have the option to return to the login screen or exit the application entirely. So this is our first tab of the form. We've also got a medical details tab, which is where we can enter things such as immunizations, medical procedures, medical conditions, prescribed medications, etc. So we've got lots of different list boxes on this form here where we can add and remove certain objects. I've got 2 other tabs here. They don't have a lot of functionality, but this would simulate if this was a production app, then if there was some part of the app that wasn't ready for end users, was still being tested, not quite ready for the world to see, we might get an under construction message like this. So this is something that you might have seen in real life. You might have seen websites display a message similar to this. So that's all that we've got here, is showing how that could be implemented in a Windows application here. But going back to the personal details page, I won't change everything on this field, but just want to point out some of the different things we can do. I've got to change password group box up here. I know that and probably in the real world, in an application, you wouldn't want your password just glaring out at you right here. But this, this is all fake information, just pretend data. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. Just want to show you how we can change the password. So I'm actually going to change it to two different passwords between the new and confirming that. And when I try to hit save, there we go. It tells me that the fields don't match. So that's a good thing. I've got some validations built in there to prevent that from saving if the new password and the confirmed new password fields don't match up. So in this case, it looks like this should work. We'll save. It's telling me it looks good. So good deal. I'll just edit one or two things on this page real quick just so we can see. I'll log back out, log back in, and see if it's saved all of my information here. So we'll just edit. Let's edit some of the primary care provider details. So maybe the primary care provider, in this case, Stephen Strange, let's say he changed his mobile number. Now it's something entirely different. I'm just making up numbers here. We'll save that. Maybe the date of birth. If we got that wrong by a week, so we'll move that up. Save that. Maybe we've got a new mobile number for the patient as well. So we'll edit this. Save that. And let's just double check. Let's see if we can log out and log back in, and if it's got those changed numbers here, as well as the changed password. Looks like it works. Yep, there's our changed fields there. So it successfully sent the updated fields, sent those properties to the database. Database is able to send them back to us when we asked it to. So if I go to the medical details page, let's just say that, our patient Steve Rogers here, after this procedure he had, maybe he had this crazy change of a blood type here. So let's just edit this page. Got some different options built out here. So I'll just pick one at random. And let's say that the procedure, he gained some more muscle from the procedure. So let's just give him 10 more pounds of muscle. Save that here. And maybe he doesn't have to take well, this is an error on my part. This should say medication or medical condition, not medication. I accidentally got that duplicated over here. Let's say one of his medical conditions is corrected. I'm not really sure, but maybe it's gone away. So what I'm going to do is, and I'll just point out how when I select different items of the list, it pulls in the object and their different properties that are displayed in the text fields up here. So let's just say he doesn't have rheumatic fever anymore. We'll just go ahead and remove that. And maybe the asthma is slightly mild. Just go ahead and save that. So this is pretty similar functionality across these sections here. And each one of these sections corresponds to one of those classes that was generated by the scaffold command from Entity Framework Core. I used Entity Framework Core, Entity Framework Core tools, and the SQL Server NuGet packages in this project. So I installed those at the beginning of this project. So you can see that this is pretty much most of it's working as intended. So one thing I wanted to show real quick was if we were a new user registering, I wanted to show that real quick what that looks like. So go ahead and just create a new user here. This is the registration form here. So let me just show you what it looks like if we don't have all these fields filled out. It should tell us that we've got some missing fields, and it tells us all the required fields on this form here. So it doesn't take that long. We'll just go ahead and add some data in here. Random year for date of birth. And yeah, got a successful registration here. So let's go ahead and log in with that new as the new user here. So we can see that when I create a brand new user, I've passed in all the different objects that were created and initialized. And what I've done is a lot of these fields are empty strings. One of the struggles that I had when creating this was really getting familiar with Management Studio and connecting that. There was many instances where I was learning that I didn't pay enough attention to the certain data type of a field in Management Studio. And when I would try to pass in saved information, it kept on giving me errors. When I would try to save edited information, it was giving me errors. For example, these phone number fields. I'll go ahead and just add some phone numbers here. I put some tooltips in to remind me that the phone numbers could only contain digits because in the database, they're set to be only a length of 10 characters. And so it doesn't have any room for dashes or parentheses. Of course, we could update and change the database to make it so that it could, but for the project, it didn't ask us to update it that much. So I did do some manipulation on a few areas that I'll show in a second, but let's go ahead and save that. I won't go through and edit all of these fields, but just wanted to point out just that kind of funny thing that I struggled with, ran into. Another thing that could be used for improvement and for me to consider in the future is making sure that the database allows nulls where it needs to and doesn't allow nulls where where it really doesn't need to. For instance, a lot of these properties of the the allergy table, the immunization table, some of these fields don't allow for nulls, and that made it difficult for me to implement adding um, when creating a new user, I've passed in empty strings when really I think it'd probably be better if we were setting them to be null instead. So that's something for me to improve on this project, and you can see that whatever I've initialized it as, that's what we're setting as in the list boxes here. So I tried to make the best of it for now and just kind of put a little hint that, okay, here's where you're going to insert a value. But that's something for me to improve on in the future. So I think hopefully you get a good idea of how this works and the functionality of it. I just want to talk over one or two things in the code real quick. So, as I mentioned, using the scaffold db context command, was able to get these different classes generated that represent the different tables and columns of our database. This is our registration form, the code behind our registration form. And I do have some validations present for some of the password combination fields. And when I mentioned manipulating the database, this is what I had to do here. The original patient table did not have all these properties. He really only had maybe the first 10 of these, and I actually added all of these. So I added them in Management Studio and connected the added properties here in the C# code. These other tables weren't as bad. That patient table did give me a lot of trouble at first. I also realized that it's very important when you're using Management Studio that you need to make sure you have the correct instance selected. So this project was also really good in teaching me how to just use the basics of Management Studio, get a little more familiar with that. So the login form also has some validations present, some exception handling if we do encounter any errors. That's one thing for improvement on this project is probably adding a validator class would have been very useful. I've got some validation spread throughout the program here, but not nearly as many as probably are required in a production ready application. Probably from the beginning, I should have made a validator class and implemented that as I went along. Now it's going to take a little bit of work looking back on this if I'm wanting to add validation, but definitely something to consider for the future. Here, I just want to point out this is my main form. This is where most of the code lives. Another thing I could improve upon is maybe divvying up all the code that's in this main form and spreading this out because this is quite a lengthy chunk of code, and this definitely made it a little harder to find errors, organize it. So just a good lesson in organization and making sure you've got all the related classes together, or the related functions. I mean, just to keep my head straight when I was creating the controls on the form and hooking them up to their events. But we've got different functions for the medical details page, especially. A lot of those areas have similar codes. So we've got, code to turn the controls on and off, the different wired events for our click, handling our click events. generating new IDs that will be used to uniquely identify records in Management Studio. I did that manually because that was a little bit more of a challenge. Wanted to challenge myself on generating those IDs. So I chose to implement that manually. But I think ideally you would have the database structure to do that for you when you create that database. But since it was already given to us, we just did what we could, did what I could to just manipulate it and manually do stuff. So I don't want to show all the code, but hopefully you've been able to see just a little bit. Um, so this project was really fun. It was incredibly challenging. I hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen. If you have any comments or suggestions on how to improve this, just let me know. I know it is far from perfect, but this is my first video attempt at doing something like this, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.